Hey guys, welcome back. Episode 2, Anatomy and Function. Hopefully the first video didn't bore you too much. You're here, aren't you? So I guess I'm doing something right. Anyway, today I want to discuss upper back anatomy and function. So, look here, my little fancy little prop here. We have Rhomboid Minor and Rhomboids Major of the upper back. You see those right here? They lie under the trap muscles. So here are your trap muscles, attach here along the spine and then the scapula. Then you have your Rhomboids Minor and Major that lies under that. Here we have our rear delts. And then our Teres Minor and Major, which lie just above the lats. Right there, you see them? And also, you see down here, a little bit closer view, the traps, Rhomboids Minor and Major. So that's kind of a little overview of the upper back and all those muscles. So we have our Rhomboid Minor, Rhomboids Major, solidly attached along the spine, and then the scapula. The Teres Minor and Teres Major, which lie just above the lats here, they attach on the humerus and originate at the scapula. Then we have our trapezius muscles. A lot of people think of traps, they think of the upper traps here, which lie on top. But, as we saw in this little diagram here, the traps run all the way down here around mid-back level. So we have these mid fibers that run across, and then the lower trap fibers that run down along the spine. So if you only train your traps in this kind of motion, you're neglecting, the other 2/3 of it. So, and that kind of plays into with the chest as well. You have your separate divisions. Same goes for the traps. Then our rear delts, scapula, originate scapula, insert on the humerus, and we all know where the rear delt is. You can feel it. You extend your shoulder back. It's that little ball right there. So you see, I have my actions written out here for the Rhomboids Minor and Major. Scapula adduction, also scapula elevation, and they're also stabilizers. The Teres Minor and Major, the Teres Minor action, shoulder external rotation. Teres Major, shoulder adduction and shoulder internal rotation. And then our traps. Overall, the traps do elevation, depression. They also do scapula adduction, also this motion, scapula depression. So all of those, an upper rotation. So basically, just think of a circle. All of those motions involve the traps. We also have our rear delts. Actions, shoulder horizontal abduction. So this kind of motion. Abducting back. Also assist in shoulder extension. So whenever you're pulling back, getting that shoulder back, shoulder extension, that's the role of the rear delts. So I have some tips here. Same goes with the upper back like the chest. We want to align our arm path to the target muscles we want to target here. So when we're thinking of our rhomboids in this upper back region here, our arm path for the rhomboids is more in this plane, more horizontal arm up here. That is going to target those rhomboids. because they run up and across right here. Now, when we talk about training rear delts, this is our rhomboids. Bring that arm path down slightly for the rear delts. Reason being is when we pull back on the rear delts, we want those rear delt fibers to line up with this scapula at 90 degrees. That's going to be our most efficient way to train our rear delts. So when you want to train your rear delts, do the rear delt row. A lot of people want to do the reverse pec deck, which is this motion, which does hit the rear delts, not as efficient as a rear delt row though. So not that arm path, you want to come back into full shoulder extension. And you can even feel that in your rear delts. If you fully extend that shoulder back, you get that ball, you feel it. Tip number 2 here we have pull downs. Now, traditional wide grip pull downs, you see a lot of people go in and they're trying to target their lats with an upper back wide grip pull down. But the wide grip upper back pull down is upper back. So when you're pulling down that arm path, the elbows flare out, that is upper back. Same, which I'll get into with our lats. With rowing and pull downs, to hit the lats, you want that humerus to drop down like this. Anytime you let your elbows flare out, this is going to target more of your upper back. Tip 3, a fully shortened upper trap muscle is with your arm overhead. So think about at the top of an overhead press. Put your hand on your traps. You feel that trap shortening. Now, really get that arm up. That is your fully shortened trap. So whenever someone's doing a shrug, you don't get that full shortening. So arm up overhead, just like this, and in. Just like that. Tip 4, you want a fluid pulling motion. So what I mean by this is you want to initiate with the humerus and then let the scapula come along after that. You want it to be fluid. And tip 5, like I mentioned before with the rear delt rows. This is something that I've been implementing in my training for a little bit now, and I've seen some great improvements with the rear delt row. One, because you can load it. You can use a lot more load than when you're doing, a bent over rear delt fly or the reverse pec deck. So when you're able to get that full shoulder extension with more load, you're really going to target those rear delts a lot more efficiently. Lastly here, I want to go over just a few common mistakes. Like I mentioned, barbell shrugs. If you just focus on barbell shrugs, you're missing out on a lot of traps. And another thing with barbell rows is loading up the barbell with many plates and just kind of bouncing. I've seen some horrible range of motion that really doesn't even target your upper traps. And another issue with loading that barbell so heavy is it begins to pull that humerus out of that shoulder joint, which can cause some issues down the road. Mistake two, is neglecting the lower traps. Lower traps, this is one area where people are very, very weak because they never train them. So how do you train those lower traps? This Y arm path up at the top. Now I'll do this movement for my delts, which I'll get into in my delt video, but this also targets those lower traps. This is the arm path you want to get into to really target those lower traps. Mistake 3 is starting with retraction. What I mean by this is, let's say we're going to do a pull down, starting with retraction and then pulling. See what I did there? Retract and then pull. What that does is it limits your range of motion. And just like with chest pressing, keeping that scapula pinned down is not a good thing. So, like I mentioned in the tips, you want to keep a nice fluid motion that's going to allow you to get that full extension that you need to train that upper back. If you start with retraction, I kind of run out of room. So just a thing to keep in mind when you're training your upper back. Mistake 4, using a rope or a close grip handle when we're doing typical movements like a face pull, when you want to target those the upper back and rhomboids. Now, when you get that close grip and pull, pretty much limit your range of motion, meaning you can't get fully shortened upper back. So, using a wider grip to pull back and around allows you to really squeeze that upper back. And mistake 5 here, which I mentioned a little bit earlier with the rear delts, is the rear delt pec deck, reverse pec deck machine. The problem with this is when your rear delts are back here, the upper part of the fibers are shortened and the lower part is lengthened. So this is why I also like the rear delt row, because when we're here at 90 degrees to that scapula, all of the fibers are efficiently shortened, and that is really, really going to hit those rear delts the best. So, just a little overview here for you guys. Again, we have our traps run down here to the mid-back area. Our rear delts here. Then our Teres Minor and Major run there. And then our rhomboids run under the traps. So hopefully these tips and a little bit of the function anatomy gives you a little bit of an idea of upper back musculature, and hopefully you can take these to the gym with you next time and maybe find a little bit of more efficient training pattern movements to help you really target that upper back. So I appreciate you guys watching. Got the notes will be posted on the website and in the comments here. So if you guys have any questions, be sure to comment, reach out to me. I'll be glad to answer those. So until next time, guys, thank you. Appreciate it.